We're going to chat all about money routines that actually work even when you're tired or low energy. I like to merge woo and wealth. And this is the way that I merge woo and wealth because there's absolutely like the, tactical of paying your quarterly estimated taxes or understanding what your business income looks like, what your business expenses are, forecasting and, tax strategies and all of that is great. And I think it's also really benefits from working with your astrology, working with your menstrual cycle, working with your own personal energetic ebbs and flows. And so we're going to weave those two together. And I'm going to chat about some of the things that I do that I find to be really beneficial in my own money practice, we'll call it. So something that I really like to look at is I like to have, again, kind of energetic hygiene is meeting financial clarity, where you add a money check-in to your morning ritual. And this may be something, depending on where you're at in your finance journey for your business or for your personal, it may be something that you're doing every day. Maybe you have some breakfast, you get your coffee or your tea, warm beverage, and you sit down and you check your accounts. You sort of do a quick state of the union. Is your business account where you expect it? Is everything fine on your credit card? Does your personal checking look good? Does that bill that you paid yesterday, did it draft out of there? And really just taking no more than about 5 minutes to do a really quick pulse point. Because one, it's a really good way to spot fraud before it spirals out of control, but it also gives you an idea of where you're at, and it can provide some exposure therapy because maybe you've been avoidant of your finances, or maybe you don't want to go look at what credit card debt you have or what student loan debt you have. You're not going to be able to easily make progress if you're not getting comfortable with a little bit of discomfort there and familiarizing yourself. And being a good steward of your money starts with understanding where you're at when it comes to your finances. This is not a shame practice. This is strictly informational, right? You're hopping in, you're checking, you're trying not to be avoidant here. You're grounding in the energy. You're seeing the, income that comes in. You're being grateful for the revenue that's come in. You're being grateful for the bills that you've been able to pay with that money that you see coming out of your account. Maybe you have a team, maybe you have rent, maybe you have a mortgage, maybe you have a car payment. What practices can you have where you can be grateful for those? Because I think so many times we talk about being grateful for the money incoming, right? More sales, more revenue. But the flip side of that is, what does that revenue let us do with our lives? And, how does it let us further spread our impact in the world? So that's something that I think is really important to focus on as well. Again, I actually like doing that daily. I know some people like to look at it Friday, and that kind of rolls into our next topic here, which is a money date. So CEO level cash flow rituals, right? So once you've gotten comfortable, you've familiarized yourself with your bank and credit and maybe debt accounts, and you're checking those regularly, we're feeling okay with where they are, right? We're just looking to be grounded and level. We don't need to be super amped up. We don't need to be super shame filled. We're just hanging out here. This is what they are, and we're watching them move along. Now, when we move into your CEO level cash flow rituals, this is where you're getting into some intentional planning. You're getting weekly money dates. We're going to talk about some things that you can look at. So, what can you be doing, and how can you be working with your money in a way that feels good? Right now, we're actually starting to implement a little bit of momentum with how we're doing it. And so, what I want you to be looking at, pick a day of the week. Maybe it's Monday. Maybe you like to lay out the week ahead. Maybe it's Friday and you like to look at where the week is going and where the next week is going to be headed. I personally really like Fridays. During our off season, we're actually closed on Fridays. And so it's really nice for me to do a little bit of personal and business review and planning. And so pick whatever day works best for you. You really don't need more than a half an hour, and that's probably even being a little too robust at this point. So I would recommend taking a half an hour and going in, and you're going to look at your reports. And we're talking about the business mostly right here, but you can make this applicable to your personal. So this would be, you do your bookkeeping if you don't have someone doing your bookkeeping for you. That means you go in, you're categorizing your transactions, you're making sure that everything in there is accurate, you're adding any receipts that you need to be adding. Again, we're doing some of those tactical items. And then you're going to go in and you're going to review your reports. And we're going to look at your reports here in just a second. So your reports would be things like your balance sheet and your income statement. And then I like to do a little bit of a bigger version of this at the end of the month when everything has wrapped up. And if you're a bookkeeping client of ours, this is a really nice thing that we actually send out for you. we send you a review of the past month compared to the rest of the months in the year and how that looks. And so we give you a rundown of, hey, this looks, your advertising stayed really consistent, or hey, you had a really big spike here, but like maybe your associate photographers spiked dramatically in the month of May. That may make sense if your revenues were double what they were, because maybe it's one of your peak months. So looking at that and seeing what stories the numbers can tell you. Again, we're looking at it week by week, making sure that we've planned out for cash flow, right? Hey, what events do I have next week? Or do I have payroll? Do I have contractors pay next week? Am I coming up on the first of the month? What sales or income am I expecting? Do I expect any shortcomings there? Do you have a line of credit that you need to tap on? Do you potentially have money you need to move over from savings? Do you have your minimum payment on your credit card automated? All of those can be really good things for you to have in place for you to not get dinged with late payment fees, for you to make sure that the bare minimum is being met. And I know that a lot of people may get hung up on, well, I always pay my credit card in full every month. That's great if you're comfortable setting it to auto pay and doing that. However, if you're not, or maybe you're working on paying credit card debt off, or maybe you're just in a little bit of a flux when it comes to your cash flow right now, something that's really smart to do is to go in and set up your credit card to automatically pay just the minimum balance, which is normally a very, very small fraction. It's not going to keep you from paying interest. It will keep you from having those late payment penalties, which can be anywhere from like $25 to $40 a month. And they can really start to add up. And they can also potentially ding your credit, which can impact interest rates that you get in the future or loan availability. So it's a really simple thing that you can be doing that a lot of people tend to overlook. And again, it'll show you what that minimum payment looks like. And then you can always make additional payments to it throughout the month. That just sort of makes sure that you don't forget something, because you have a lot of dates probably bouncing around in your head and a lot of information. And that helps take one more thing off of your plate. And so again, we're sitting down once a week. We're reviewing what's come in. We're reviewing what's set to go out. We're reviewing what we're expecting, analyzing if there's any shortcomings. And then once a month, we're doing a little bit longer. Maybe this one is like 45 minutes instead of an hour. And that's when you're reviewing your year to date, basically. You're looking at how this month compared to the last couple of months. And maybe you're looking at how this month compared to the same month the last couple of years. And I've used this as an example before, but one really great example is we tend to have a really slow revenue month in July. And then we have another one in November. And when I first had my business, it caused some panic. And, it was these recurring thoughts of, oh my gosh, should I even be a business owner? Is this going to make it? Like, what's going on? Now I know, because I have 10 years of data that shows me that, hey, these are the trends. This is how it works. July, there's a lot of people out on vacation. It's, kind of the lowest for tax season. And November, again, there's a lot of people out on vacation. And it's right before that end of the year, push really comes in. And so now I work with those. And so that's something else that you can be rolling in potentially to these monthly reviews is, hey, what's up on deck next month? Is it one of my off-peak months? And what am I going to do with it? Am I fine for cash flow? Again, do I need to move some money over from savings? Do I need to potentially draw on a line of credit if I have one? What do I need to be doing here to make sure that things flow? Do I need to be canceling any subscriptions? Do I need to be, that's something that's really good to review too, at least quarterly, if not monthly. Am I still using the subscriptions that I'm paying for? Training and education wise, software subscription wise, those are all really good spots to be looking, especially if you have a team and you have multiple logins. It's a really big area where you can get expense creep to come in. And so with this now, let's say that maybe July is an off-peak month for you as well. And you're sitting here in early June and you're reflecting on May and the first few months of this year. And you're sitting here and you're going, okay, I expect July to be slow. Number one, am I okay with that? Or do I want to do something? Do I want to, and if you're not okay with it from a cash flow perspective, right? Maybe you really want to be making more money that month. Maybe you have some big goals this year. Maybe your revenue has been a little bit different than years past. This would be the time for you to decide, am I pushing some sort of sale? Am I launching some sort of quick action? What am I going to be doing? Am I, launching a additional service, right? Maybe it's an add-on. Maybe it's, I'll just use this as an example, right? For photographers, right? Maybe you're putting something out there to all of your past clients that, hey, you have availability for minis or for family sessions or, just quick, like what the hell sessions. Might be a really, depending on your demographic, might be something that goes over really well. And you can offer some sort of, fast action or, some sort of freebie that you want to be doing with it or add on that gets people really excited. It's something that I think helps with that is if you touch base with a couple of your clients to say, hey, gauge some interest. If I did this, would you be interested? Or if I did this, or this, which one would you be most interested in? And go from there. Another option, maybe you're feeling really good. Maybe it's been a busy year, it's just been really consistent. July, in this example, could be a great month to take some time for yourself. So, what do you need to prep for that? Do you want to take a vacation? Do you want to take a staycation? What client work needs to be taken care of? Does anyone need to be notified? Do you need an out of office on? Do you need to prepay any bills? And then take that time, notify your clients, put your autoresponder on. Another thing that you can do, if you're not doing either of those two, are kind of in combo with that second one, especially, is does anything need to be fixed in your business, improved in your business? Do you need systems that need to be improved? And this is something that we do in our specifically, we go and we review how did this tax season work? And we actually do this in June and July normally, but how did this past tax season work? What things broke? We've chatted with clients, we've gotten feedback from them, what was really good, what was, not so good. How can we roll in some improvements for this next year while this is still fresh in our mind? And that's something that we will specifically do during that slower month in July because we have the bandwidth, the capacity, the time, the mental energy to go do it. And we're also generally not in the middle of a whole bunch of overlapping client projects. So you may find that the same thing is super beneficial for you as well. So I really like doing those. I think they're very helpful to have a money date and then again have a more robust money date at least once a week with yourself. Maybe you're having this money date with your spouse. Maybe you're having it with another business owner. I think that can be really fun too. It's something that you can be, supporting each other with. It's something you can always come show up to the Wealth Witches office hours too. If you want to like, hey, I want to do a money date and I'd like to do it together and kind of see what things you bring up that maybe I don't notice. That's something that you can do too. So now we're going to roll a little bit more wooey with this next one, and we're going to look at reflecting and forecasting. Now, there's forecasting and there's, looking at, like, I'll give you the prime example of that July, right? So I know coming into this that in general, July tends to be slower. What do I want to do about it? Same thing with November. What do I want to do about it? That lets me forecast months ahead. I also know based on having years of business now and having the cyclical nature and understanding it, I have done things specifically to help spread our workflow or workload and workflows out across a longer period of time because we're only human. There's only so much we can do during peak season. So there's incentives, for people that we can work with during the slower season or the off peak season. Maybe you're doing the same thing. This might be a really good time of year for you to be doing that or to be earmarking it on your calendar for a later date. Something else that I really like to do is take some time, and it's really good when you're in it to be doing it, but maybe you're just rolling into peak season, right? I know like a lot of our clients in the Pacific Northwest are just starting to get really, really busy because they're coming out of the rainy season. And so with that, as you find something that's broken, be writing it down. When I say broken, I don't necessarily mean physically broken, like your camera gear or a strap or a lens or something, although that, of course, can be on there. I mean, systems. What's something that gets bottlenecked? What's something that didn't work very well? And I'm not asking you to fix it during your busy season, but it can be really easy to forget that once you're through it. And so that's actually something we did with our team this year is we all had a shared note and we jot down things, whether it was feedback, whether it was a workflow that we didn't like, so that we can come back to it after the season. So that's something that lets us reflect back both from our perspective and then again with client input on what things they liked. And I actually talked to a lot of our clients this year after tax season to see that. And same thing with your clients. What did you love about this process? What's something if you could like wave a magic wand that you would have loved to have been improved here? The other thing that I really like to be doing, and this is where we get much wooier, is I like to be working with my astrology. And so this is something that for me specifically, this is going to get really niche for a minute. And so I encourage you to look at your own charts because this is very chart dependent. But for example, I have my moon is in Libra and it's in my 12th house. And when the moon is in Libra, during the month, I specifically will try and block my calendar off for those few days because it's really good time for me to be introverting. I do really, really well if I'm not forcing a bunch of extroverted efforts during that time, if I'm not, overloading my calendar. And so making sure that I am playing to my strengths and accommodating my higher need times of the month can be really helpful. And so that may be something that you find for yourself as well. And in addition, I have found that there are a few days during the month based on my menstrual cycle that I'm also blocking a few days off on my calendar. Does that mean that I won't override them occasionally? No. it means that I am putting it in there so that I am aware of it. And if something needs to be put in there, I can make the executive decision to decide, do I sort of tap into some of that, sacred marked off time? Is it, important enough to do so? And if so, I absolutely will. But I'm going into it knowing that, like, I need to have good snacks during that time. I need to have some other accommodations that I may not need the rest of the month. And those have made a really big difference for me in how I'm showing up and how I'm creating. And that's something else that, there's about a week of the month, and I'm still trying to get this nailed down really well, where I am so creative. I have 7 billion ideas coming out of me. And the goal here would be that that's when I'm creating social media content. That's when I'm jotting down half-assed like blog ideas that come up to me so that we can be executing on those, or the team can be even helping with those too. But taking advantage of that so that I'm not just trying to create at the same level every single day of every single month, because that's not realistic for a lot of people that have, you know, menstrual cycles that are coming through, or any sort of cyclical nature to their being, that I think can be really helpful. And so maybe if, we look at a more male presenting circadian rhythm, you're looking at something that, is on a 24-hour versus a 28 to 30-day cycle potentially. And, maybe you have your own unique cycle within that. So a lot of this is reflecting and using things that you have noticed, being aware, right? And I don't have a journaling practice. It's something that one of these days I'll eventually probably actually stick to. But it could be really helpful for you to mark things on your calendar as they go along, right? Maybe you notice a day and you're like, "Ah, I was just really low energy or crabby, or I didn't want to be doing things." Write it down. Maybe when you look back over the last couple of months, you notice that there's like a theme or a pattern to when this is happening. So that might be really helpful for you when you're forecasting or planning things in the future, to be able to make decisions. And you know what? That's when I was really crabby last month, or really low energy last month. Maybe I'm going to pack my schedule a lot less and see how it works for you, and put a note in your calendar. I have, like I said, a recurring block on my Google Calendar now that works really well for me to take less on, and to work more internally, and to give myself a little bit more grace so I don't have to go, full out that day, have all the client calls, get through all the client work. I'm able to really slow it down. And then lastly, what I really like here is nervous system aligned earning. So this can be really different for everyone, but this is something that took a lot of practice. It's something I still struggle with occasionally, especially in a business that has peak and off peak season and has this urgency behind it. At the end of the day, so much of it to me comes down to educating clients and setting expectations. And I see this across industries, not just in ours. I just see it as a really big gaping hole in the accounting and finance industry. Where can you be setting the expectations? Hey, this is how things are going to work. Tell them about the plan. Tell them about the plan again. Get them to acknowledge the plan. And then you're still going to have some reminding. You're still going to have some setting of expectations. But every year we get better at how we're handling that with our clients. Hey, if we don't have this information by this date, we'll need to file an extension. Here's what an extension means, because you're trying to anticipate some questions. You're trying to help your clients with this. And this is going to make it a lot easier, I think, for you to deal with your clients. Like, we have a lot of clients that have some anxiety around money, they have some anxiety around taxes, they didn't go to school for this, and they're just doing their best in their business. And we're here to recognize and support that. And so part of helping regulate our own nervous systems is helping to make sure that we are addressing our clients' needs as well, and anticipating some of those where we're able to address them, and working within our schedules. So again, hey, you're working with us. Cool, you're going to hear from us Monday through Thursday. During tax season, you may hear from us from different hours. What is your response time? What is your turn time? What can you expect from us? What things are covered? And I do feel like contracts and clarity are a kindness here, especially for business owners. Being able to, again, it goes back to setting expectations. What is included in this? What isn't included in this? And some of those things, unfortunately, come from having less than stellar experiences, or because maybe you didn't have the clarity. Maybe you didn't know what all was going to need to be there. Maybe the client didn't know. Maybe there was a disconnect in what you both assumed. And so now you have things that you can call out specifically, or you have onboarding that can be updated to address that. All of these things can be helping. And then you also can have actual nervous system practices that you put into place. And someone that I really love for this is Aislinn McKenna. I think she goes think that's what she is. We'll link her in this. She's wonderful for nervous system regulation practices. She has like butterfly taps that you can be doing. There's different box breathing exercises that you can do. There's moving your body if that's something that really helps you. I know it's something that really helps me. I try to get outside for at least a few minutes every day, even if it's snowy. And something that I've been doing a lot for about the past year is really regularly walking on my treadmill. It's literally like right behind the screen because I have a sit stand desk. So I can sit when I want to, and then I can raise my desk up and I can go answer emails or watch trainings or attend team meetings, and I can be on my treadmill. And so integrating things into my life that help me as a person have been significantly more helpful. And then also, part of all of this is figuring out your pricing. And that's why this is all so intertwined. And I don't like it when someone just brings the woo and the manifest and the gratitude, and they don't bring the, hey, can you pay your bills? Hey, do you know what your, cost of living expenses are? And so I think that being able to merge these two is really where the power is of, okay, great. I know that this particular service that I'm putting out, I don't want to be doing anymore. But how is that selling? How much of my income is that? Do I need to make plans before just dropping it cold turkey and watching my income drop, by 50%? And then being surprised. So this is where we can acknowledge that maybe we don't want to be offering a service, but maybe we have contracts and we need to finish those contracts out. So what are we doing to potentially replace the income or augment that income? And then how are we slowly educating and rolling those clients out of that service or out of that offering? So these are all things to be taken into consideration in conjunction with actual nervous system regulation practices as well. And I feel like that's been a buzzword for a while, but I think it's so incredibly important. You're prioritizing your sleep, you're setting up an environment that you like to work in, you're taking care of yourself to the extent that you're able to, whether that's moving your body, doing some light stretches, taking some time to go meditate if maybe you're not able or in a spot to be moving your body, taking breaks away from the computer, staring outside. What helps you feel more like you?
That's a wrap for this episode of the Wealth Witches podcast. I hope our magical money talks have left you feeling empowered and inspired. Remember, wealth isn't just about dollars in the bank, it's about abundance and financial freedom in all aspects of your life. I'm Katelyn Magnuson, encouraging you to keep challenging the status quo and embrace your inner witch on this financial journey. Until next time, stay magical.